Greetings, folks. If you're watching this in the future, please leave a like and please subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. But let's get into our stream here. We're doing day 33 without crashing. I think day 81 total of doing this streaming series on YouTube. And yeah, we're on a roll here. We're gonna be doing the Isle of Man again today. At least the first section of it from Governor's Bridge to Sarah's Cottage. As I mentioned yesterday, I'm working on editing the official Isle of Man mod for GP bikes here. Trying to cut it down into sections so that you can practice each smoothly without all the shaking that you get in the normal mod. But yeah, we're on to day 33. How cool is that? I had a crazy close call yesterday on day 32. I had gone about an hour and a half into the stream, and I decided to do a loop from Governor's Bridge to Sarah's Cottage and back by utilizing both lanes. Most of the time on these road circuits, while I'm still learning them and stuff, I like to just stick to one lane. In this case, the left one, since we're in Great Britain. You just gotta be immersed, right? But I like to stick to one lane, but yesterday I decided to use both lanes and just try to stick to the center line. And I was doing pretty good on the way to Sarah's Cottage, but on the way back in the Glen Helen section, I misjudged a corner so bad and was going straight into a wall, and I just barely was able to squish my brakes and like bounce like use the tires as springs almost, and like bounce my way just to the left of it, and I just barely missed that freaking wall. So yeah, we're not gonna be going decently fast on this course for quite a while, I think, until I really learn it. And then even then, once you start going faster, the course changes a little bit, so yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. But we're gonna be going slow today. We're just gonna be using one lane, pretty much just gonna be cruising. Yeah, I had some close calls yesterday. I was making some mistakes. I dropped the bike a number of times yesterday. One of the drops was a little bit worse than the rest, but it was still almost just totally stationary, so I didn't end up counting it as a minor crash. But yeah, made a lot of mistakes yesterday. It was my first time really riding this section of the course, so I'm gonna take it quite a bit slower. You'd think I've done a number of days on TT Isle of Man 3 of the game, and I know the course decently well, but it's just too big. You cannot memorize it. So yeah, gonna be taking this day slow. In other news, I got some KLR videos coming out soon, some KLR repair videos, and I think that's about it. I'm going to be working on this part of the mod and the other parts, the other sections of the Isle of Man course, and hopefully I'll have those available to download within 3 or 4 weeks or so. It's going to take a good bit work still. I'd like to get it to the point where you can have a trainer on these tracks, and the trainer is not working at the moment, unfortunately. But yeah, gonna put some work in. I want to cut them down so that they load quicker. So there may not be as many textures as you get in the actual Isle of Man course, but I'm not totally sure how I'm gonna do that yet. If I'm gonna just focus on trees or trees and buildings or whatnot. So yeah, I think I'm good to go though. Good to start the stream. Good to start the ride. As far as my settings go right now, I like this PSI right here for my front tire. It takes a little bit of PSI off of the front from what the default was. So you can use a little bit more front brake, you can lean into the tire more, but any less than this and you start to corner kind of strangely, so I like it right there. I might play around with this, the rear tire pressure today, although I'm going to be going pretty slow, so it's not really going to make too much of a difference. So we got some gas, we're good to go. Let's get on track, folks. Yeah, we're going to be going very slow today, just cruising back and forth, doing a little meditation on the bike, and yeah, hopefully we'll get through it. Alright folks, let's get on the road. Hold on a second, I forgot to start my music. Alright, so I know the course well up until just about this point right here. After this, up until Ballot Crane, it gets kind of fuzzy. So I'm gonna pay close attention while I'm going through here. So there's this sweeping left, and a slight right, and then I think it's straight for a good while, apart from this little bend right here, and then it gets into that little curvy bit. Yeah, and here's the curvy bit. Alright, so that's it. So there's a little straight after Balagary, and then there's this long sweeping left with a slight right, and then you're going straight, and then you pretty much hit this curvy bit. I don't know the name of it. And then after this, I think there's a slight chicane right here, and then a longer sweeping chicane right after it. And then I think you're going pretty much straight until there's a long sweeping left, and then you're at Ballot Crane, I want to say. Okay, there's another little chicane. And then here's this long sweeping left. This corner's kind of tough. And then I think it's essentially straight other than a slight right-hand bend until Ballot Crane. And I think this is that right-hand bend. There's another one. So two right-handers. And then this is Ballot Crane up here. And then this next bit, I think the whole section is sort of called Glen Helen, but this bit's kind of still murky. I know there's like 3 general chicanes until you get to Laurel Bank, and then there's 3 more general chicanes until you get to Glen Helen, but the specific of each of those general chicanes are very, very murky to me still. There is this bit, which is a good, like, divider. You can sort of divide this first and second section until Laurel Bank with that little bit right back there. I don't know the name of it. I think it's something bridge. I think there's a long right-hander here, and then a left, and then we're into Laurel Bank, I want to say. Yep, there's Laurel Bank. Then this next bit is tricky. I think this this section is where I had the close call yesterday. So there's one sort of general chicane. There's this house right here that's a good landmark. Then here's the second sort of general chicane. And then I think it's this left-hander. And then are we... No, we've got a little bit longer, and then we're into Glen Helen and Sarah's Cottage. Yeah, there's this very long multi-apex left-hander. And then I think we're into Glen Helen right now, yep. and then that's that whole section. So lots of small corners that are hard to place. And I'm gonna try not to drop the bike when I'm doing these U-turns up here today, but we can't make any promises. We're not counting dropped bikes. Yeah, I made that one. Alright, cool. And learning it backwards, I'm not gonna know it backwards for a good while. That's just gonna be experience, I think. I'm gonna have to take it slow for a long time. I really want to know where Laurel Bank is though, because that one jumps out at you. That's where I had my slightly bad drop yesterday. Again, it was definitely not fast enough to really cause any damage or cause me any injuries, so I decided not to count it. But yeah, it just sneaks up on you right there. That's where I sort of dropped it. I think after this bit, there's just one general chicane, and then we're back at Ballycrane. Let's see if I'm right about that. So there's a sweeping left, 2 apexes, 3 apexes, and then a quick right. This corner sneaks up on you too. And then sort of a very slight right, and then that's Ballycrane, yeah. So it's just one chicane between Ballycrane and that straight bit. So let's see if we can remember the course in reverse going back to this section. We've got a left-hander, a couple left-handers, and then we're at that sweeping right-handed corner. Should be coming up here. Yes, it is. I see that like white box way up there. That's sort of a good indication that it's coming up. That one right there. Then we've got a slight chicane, a more sweeping chicane, another slight chicane, and then there's that curvy bit, which I should remember the name of. I think it's Greba's Castle. Here's that sweeping one. Here's the slight one. And then this is Greba's Castle up here, I want to say. Yep, right here. Then there's this slight turn right here, and then I think it turns left slightly up here, and then it's a straight for a while with a hill in the middle of it. the hill, goes straight after. Straight for a while. And then is this Balgary up here? No, it's not yet. I wonder what this little section's called. Now it's a straight up until Balgary up there. And I know the rest of this bit. There's a slight lefter, straight until a little kink in the road, and then there's another sweeping. I don't know the names of all the corners, but I do have them memorized pretty well at this point. Yeah, my frame rate is pretty bad on this track as well. I think there's just way too many textures, probably way too many trees. Though it won't look as good, I think I definitely do want to cut some of it out if I'm going to actually practice this place. Great Hill is really tough to do in reverse, at least in the left lane. Alright, let's try not to mess up the U-turn up here too. Ooh. Gotta reset. Alright, well that's not a good reset. That's better. There we go. Whoa! Whoa! Oh my goodness. Ah. Alright, let's just go back to the pit. That's also something I'll need to take care of. I don't know exactly why it's placing me out of the map sometimes like that. Alright, second loop. Alright, I'm going to be paying close attention while I'm going through this section. Still don't really know it. I think there's 3 apexes to this right-hander, I want to say. Yep. And then we're into this bridge bit. And there's a left-hander. Kind of sweeping. Long sweeping. Then there's a long right-hander, I want to say. Sweeping also. And then there's a shorter left-hander, and then we're into Laurel Bank. But this left-hander is 2 apexes, kind of, and then we're right into it. And after Laurel Bank, there's a double apex, slight left, slight right to this house right here, so that's 1 chicane. And there's a longer left, sweeping, longer right, double apex, longer left, sweeping, and then there's a slight left, double apex, quick right, quick left, and then we're into Glen Helen. Okay. After I get to Laurel Bank, it's still very murky. There's a lot to remember there. Let's not mess up the U-turn. Cool. And I'm not even going to try to remember the corners here, I'm just getting experience on the way back. Seeing if I can identify them in the opposite direction. There's where I had my close call right there into that wall. Laurel Bank is coming up after this left-hander right here. It's right after it. Right there. It just cuts to the left. Alright, after this bridge, there's just 1 chicane, and I want to say this left-hander coming up is a triple apex. There's 1, 2, 3, wonderful. Then we got this tight right-hander, and then a slight right, and then we're back out into Bella Crane. Then coming up here, I think it's 2 slight lefts, and then we're into that long sweeping one with the wall on the inside. And then we've got a few chicanes going into Grievous Castle. And then I don't really remember what's after that and before Balagary. So here we've got a slight chicane, and then a sweeping chicane, another slight chicane, and then we're at Grievous. And then it's a long double apex after Grievous. Here's the sweeping chicane. Quick one. Grievous. Long double apex right. Could be considered a straight here, but it's probably one turn at speed. Then I don't really remember this section. We got a left-hander, straight. I think there's a right-hander before we get to the hill. There's the hill. Then there's this right-hander into this town, whatever it's called. Excuse me. To a sweeping right with that wall right there, and then it's a straight into Balagary on this side. Yep. I don't remember what comes next. Oh, it's this tank right here. Heavy braking. It's going a little too fast right there. don't know exactly how far Governor's Bridge is after the start line. It's after a second crest in the hill, I think. Alright, let's get this U-turn right. Cool. I kind of want to recenter myself real quick. I feel like I'm too low on the bike. Ugh, that's a little better. way too far inside there. I almost feel like my gyro isn't calibrated or something. No, it's okay. I didn't crash from that. Holy crap. My headset just gave me that pop-up that said there's like water or debris in the charging port, even though there's not, because I just replaced the charging port after their stock one broke after like 30 hours of use. But it freezes the game, it turns my whole screen black, gives me a pop-up. Usually it happens after like 5 or 10 minutes. This time it happened after, what, like 50? I don't know how long we've been going. So stupid though. I'm gonna check to see how my tires are after I get back to when I get back to Governor's Dip. They feel a little bit worn. Alright, let's check my tires. See how we're doing. Oh my goodness, yeah, those are worn. That might be why I was having some weird times turning there. Goodness me. So tires will probably last 3 loops and then you gotta change them. I wonder if it'd be worth putting mediums on. Not yet. how long have I been going? I'm going for an hour and 7 minutes. Probably get back around an hour and 15. I might end the stream there, and I might do one more loop after that. Feeling a little bit tired, and I want to do some other stuff tonight, so not gonna go too much longer, but let's at least get back to Governor's Dip. A little too fast for my comfort into that one. Okay, and I think that will be the end of the ride for me today. I think that was 5 loops. Not very long stream, but I did pay a decent bit of attention in those bits where I didn't fully remember where the course was going, right between Balagary and Grebas, and between Grebas and Balacrane, and then that whole Glen Helen section. I got a decent amount of practice and attention there, so I'm gonna sleep on it, come back tomorrow, and I should know the course a decent amount better, and then I might be able to start going a little bit faster. But I also do kind of want to go back to Nürburgring soon. I love riding that course. But I'm gonna shut the stream down. I'm gonna try to make some more progress on the other sections of this track. And yeah, hopefully those will be featured in the stream within the next week or two. That'd be very cool. But as for today, thank you for watching. Please leave a like, please subscribe. And I will see you guys